Yo, what's up, everyone? It's your boy Jack OATz to GOAT. You either know or you don't. Thank you guys so much for pressing the button to watch this video. Stick around, see if you like it. If you do, you're going to have to slap the like button, hit subscribe. Only if it's, you're a few videos in and you like what you see. If not, we'll see you around other channels. Anyway, today is the third clip on the Draconian Path. And this clip is known as Samael. Now, this one's a little tricky, so this one might be a bit longer or a bit shorter if I can get out the information I need to in a good amount of time. But this one's very complicated, so this one's very pivotal to Black Clover. So in order, we have Lilith, the Klippa, Lilith, and then we have the Belial, and then it's this one. So if we are going off of Crowley's Klippa, which I feel like we have been, then there should be two devils in here, and it's Belial and Addramalech. However, in the more common, more used Klippa, we have who's known as Baal. And we will kind of go over every aspect that we need to know. I'm going to throw in my theory in this as well towards the end, but I do want to read you what I have in this book by Thomas Carlson about the Kabbalah, Klippa, and Goetic magic, and give my thoughts and make some parallels as I'm reading through. This one's not too long of a read, so we should be able to get off some conversation in the meantime. But anyway, here we go. So in Jewish mythology, Samael is the husband of Lilith. Now, I gotta stop already, because while this is true, Samael does not, in Crowley's Klippa, hold this low of a position in the underworld. Samael in Crowley's Klippa is directly across from the Lilith that he speaks of, which is Aishet, and he would be the correspondent to Chokmah, so the second highest in command. So this might be a bit confusing. This might take a couple of listens to, but just understand that this Samael, being the husband of Lilith, is better explained on Crowley's Klippa, which is why I like using his, because his is actually very true to lore, where it doesn't make sense to have Samael and Lilith be consorts, and they are two completely different ranks. So it's a little tricky. But anyway, let's go on. Samael is an epithet of the devil, and Lilith encountered him after her escape from the Garden of Eden. And so this is why I'm saying he's an epithet of the devil, which wouldn't mean he's low-ranking, which on Mathers is, and I forget the other guy's name, but no one really ever uses Klippa. Their Klippats don't really make sense in this regard. How are we going to have an epithet for the devil and him actually not even being in the same archetypal world as far as earth, wind, fire, and water? The devil is fire, the highest archetypal world, and this is still in the world of foundation, which is the lowest, the world of action. So it really doesn't make sense, which is why I'm rolling with Crowley's Klippa. But anyway, together they gave birth to all the seductive demonic offspring that populate the Belial. Samael is the great tempter, and he tempts with knowledge. In the Sefer Yetzirah and Old Kabbalistic manuscripts, Samael corresponds to the occult wisdom, and it is within the Samael Klippa that the true initiation on the left-hand path takes place. I want to go back again. It says that together they gave birth to all the seductive demonic offspring that populate Belial. Samael is the great tempter, and he tempts with knowledge. So one of the other things in all of my past videos where I talk about Belial and Beelzebub, but Beelzebub has a couple of roles. I'll say Belial Beelzebub has a few roles actually within the underworld, which makes sense because its counterpart on Crowley's Klippa, which is Lilith in her three forms, has a few capacities within the underworld. So it makes sense that the mother and father have several places within the underworld. But it says he tempts with knowledge. So in lore, depending on what you're looking at, you have the snake that tempts Eve into eating the apple of knowledge being the snake, or they have Satan as the snake, or they have Samael as a snake. So, sorry if you're hearing a bunch of construction noises. Fun fact, I live in San Diego, like right next to Qualcomm Stadium, and they just tore it down to rebuild another stadium, so all that noise is from over there, just so you guys know. But anyway, he tempts with knowledge. So remember, in those past videos where I talk about Beelzebub / Belial, they also look over the realm of Dot, which is the abyss. And this is interesting just because Dot on the Sephiroth is the gateway to knowledge, while Dot in the Clipot is the gateway where knowledge stops. So it's interesting that he tempts with knowledge because it corresponds to Dot, which Lilith, or the third version of Lilith, Aishet, and Samael in Crowley's Clipot correspond to. So it makes sense that Crowley's Clipot just makes a ton more sense, to be honest with you. It's just all I'm trying to say. But let's keep going so I can interrupt it mid-sentence again. All common conceptions and perspectives of the world are questioned on this Clipot. The magician who has reached this level will be able to see through the rules and ethical laws that have imprisoned us in psychic censorship that darkens a large part of our consciousness. On this level, the magician will confront all these rules and ethical laws by making them conscious. Thus, one receives a personal understanding of the functions of existence and individuality. Individually decides what is right or wrong, good and evil. In this sense, Samael is the tempter who entices man into eating the fruits of knowledge, like we just said. So you guys are probably wondering why I have Zenon on this picture. I put him there just because when we talk about Samael, I do want to get across that the lore of this Samael, this angel that Carlson is speaking of right now, is higher on this Clipot, and I believe that is who Zenon has as a devil. But there's also another part in this that I have Zenon specifically there for, that I'll go over, I guess, maybe towards the end here. I think you guys might enjoy what I think about Zenon in particular, and it's going to go back to one of my last theories about the Triad being some of the first human beings on the planet. So let's keep going. Samael also reveals the beauty of the world and points downwards, inwards, instead of upwards towards the kingdom of heaven. Samael is the blasphemer who destroys illusion with his intellect. So I want you guys to remember when I talked about Yuno being the one, we talked about what was called the Halls of Amenti, where they essentially state that everything physical that you can think of, every celestial body, the space in between them, black matter, all that stuff, is the work of devils, or archons as they put it. Now, if you can look past and let go of all these physical things and concepts, you are heading towards the end of the Halls of Amenti, which is towards ascension into becoming a god, or reassimilating with the singular god. So this is what I talked about with Yuno. Now, in this part where it says Samael is a blasphemer who destroys illusion with his intellect is interesting because they talk about this physical world being an illusion. Now, we typically think of illusions as intangible things, like dreams, but the illusion is very real, and that is matter, which is made by devils in some of these philosophies. So for Samael to deconstruct illusion with his intellect, I want you guys to think of his Zenon's what's it called? Spatial domination spell, where he's able to break down spells within it, and then kind of overlapped it. But I just think it's really interesting that it's worded like that, considering how the Clipot is viewed when it comes to things like physical matter, and yeah, I just thought it was interesting, worth mentioning. Samael deconstructs conceptions and ideas to their tiniest components. Psychedelic and surrealistic art might offer a glimpse of the Samael Klippa, and the deconstruction of language that can be found in Dadaism can be used in magical work with Samael. Hod is the bright side of Samael, so in context, Veto would be the light side of Samael. Hod represents the intellect and belongs to the higher astral level. Samael is the dark intellect that can be perceived as madness, the originality and genius that is active outside the frames of reason and the conventions of civilization. Numerous scientists, writers, and artists have touched the domains of Samael. The intellect of Edgar Allan Poe seems to have been occasionally influenced by Samael, and the following words that he wrote about himself present a good summary of the form of intelligence that is Samael. So Edgar Allan Poe wrote, "Men have called me mad, but the question is not yet settled whether madness is or is not the loftiest intelligence. Whether much that is glorious, whether all that is profound, does not spring from disease of thought, from moods of mind exalted at the expense of the general intellect." On the Samael Klippa, the magician makes a pact with the dark forces and realizes the invitation of Friedrich Nietzsche to reevaluate old values. Insanity becomes wisdom. Death becomes life. Samael is the poison of God. Here is where illusions are poisoned, and all categories, conceptions are deconstructed until nothing is left. The dark side of the astral plane could be compared to a chalice filled with poison or an intoxicating fluid. Now, this last bit is really interesting, and like I said, this is just, it can go back and forth, like I said. So while they talk about the Klippa Samael, they do end up describing the fallen angel Samael. However, that is not who rules here. And it's just, I know this can be confusing, like I said. Just give it a couple listens, and it should probably stick by then. But to contradict what I've been saying about Zenon's devil, how he deconstructs the illusions or the matter, the spells within it, the thing is that there's nothing that alludes to him being any sort of poison. As the Klippa suggests, it is called Samael, which is the poison of God. And it just doesn't fit. And of course, he's not representative of Hod or the shadow side of Hod. So this is where we start running into some issues, which is why this, like I said, the next devil that comes through is going to decide whose Klippa we're using. But like I said, Crowley's Klippa, if you were making a story, makes the most sense to use. So in that case, it would be Belial and Addramalech. But let's just keep going here. They talk about a chalice as well, and putting an elixir inside of it. So remember, they say that Samael is the epithet for the devil. Remember that the devil is Lucifer. Lucifer falls, creates the abyss. And upon his fall, in Atlantean and Tyrolean lore, in Argentinian lore, upon his fall, he loses the gem in his crown, which is then described as a philosopher's stone, which becomes the Holy Grail, and they put the blood of Jesus Christ into it, and that makes the completion of the Holy Grail. So it's interesting that they mention a chalice with an elixir, and Samael being the epithet for the devil. So that's why I believe Crowley's Klippa, again, is just more accurate, to have him closer to Lucifer as opposed to being somewhat the farthest away. Just doesn't make quite much sense to begin with. So, Samael is the elixir, and the following Klippa, Arab Zarak, is where the magician experiences the effect. The consumption of the poison is a decisive rite of passage, marking the transition from one state to another. Among certain primitive tribes and shamanic cultures, the bite of a poisonous snake has been associated with initiation, sometimes in the more drastic form that causes the death of the initiate because they're being bitten by a snake. But more common, however, is that the initiate has emptied a cup containing some form of potent hallucinogen. The poison of Samael causes an initiatory death of the mundane personality of the dark magician. Now, this is one of the more interesting passages in this whole chapter, where it says the poison of Samael causes an initiatory death of the mundane personality of the Dark Magician. Now, if we look at Zenon, he's got no real personality to speak of, to be honest with you. And with this sentence here, it makes a whole lot of sense as to why he might not have one. Because in the Klippa of Samael, that is where the mage experiences the death of the mundane personality. So, like a lot of people theorized in the beginning, that the Triad probably sacrificed something to get their devils that they host. This might be the reason why people had Zenon maybe sacrificing his personality to have this devil. But just to put a little more evidence on that theory is good. So in its place, the true will is released corresponding to the beast and Tigirian. So remember, in Crowley's Klippa, Samael and Aishet, or the third form of Lilith, have a child, and this child is the beast in Tigirian, or Tigirian. And it corresponds to 666, otherwise known as the Antichrist, which, contrary to popular belief, is not Lucifer or Satan. It is Belphegor and Kiowa. So this really makes sense as to how this triad is working, the dark triad. So let's just keep on going. Hopefully this makes sense, and hopefully the context from BC to what's happening here makes sense to you guys and you guys behind it, because I think it kind of makes sense. But again, it is kind of hard to explain that this particular Klippa while explaining a higher Klippa, and I know it's kind of a mess, but like I said, just take a couple listens. Samael is the Klippa of the trickster. Now, what I like that Carlson does here is what he does in his other book, The Night Side of Runes, which is make cross-lore references. So Samael is the Klippa of the trickster. The trickster is the mythological character transmitting both wisdom and insanity. The Nordic god Loki has the qualities of a trickster and is both wise and cunning, as well as the cause of many problems. In the myths of the North American Indians, the coyote is often a trickster character. The trickster can be a bringer of culture who imparts abilities and objects that can be both blessings and curses. A good example is the fire that can bring heat, but also burns. The symbolical initiation into mysteries of fire belongs to the initiation on the left-hand path, and thus also to the Samael Klippa. The magician swears an oath on the Samael level and thus gains control of the Kundalini, which is the energy of life, and the inner fire. The dark magical initiation is a process that can be painful since it overthrows old conceptions. The dark magician develops his magical identity on Samael and can view the world with new eyes. The conceptions that are broken down by the poison of Samael will arise in a new and purer form when the magician reaches the higher worlds. The peacock demon Addramalech, corresponding to individuality, beauty, and all-seeing, rules Samael. The magician abandons the ethical barriers that can prevent magical completion. Ethical values are replaced by aesthetic values. Samael poisons the moralistic barriers that hinder the magician's artistic self-creation. So, it's funny because the last couple of sentences both contradict and propel my theory about Zenon having this devil that would be Samael, but has components where it's like it is this devil and it is not this devil. But on the lower level, where it says that Samael poisons the moralistic barriers, we can see that the morals of Zenon have obviously been, I guess, hindered or poisoned. But then it also says that they hinder the magician's artistic self-creation, which is, again, just kind of a fancy way of going about the personality. It hinders that, and that is what Zenon is lacking right now. So it does describe it. Now, it's just very hard to detail because they call this Klippa, the actual husk, Samael, while the devil within it is Addramalech. However, Samael lies much higher, where Beelzebub and Belial lie on Mather's Clipot. So we just have to be careful. Now, I do want to talk a bit about Crowley's Clipot and my thoughts on Zenon and my theory on Zenon. So, on Crowley's Clipot, like I said, the next gate would hold Belial and Addramalech. Now, we just went over the Addramalech's Clipot. He is the peacock demon, and everything I just said is what he rules over. Now, there's nothing peacock about Zenon. There's nothing about that unless he is poisoning the mage to take that for himself. I can see that. And that would definitely go into what I believe is going to happen with the second devil. I believe I just made a video on what I'd like the second or this third level. Well, no, it's the second gate devil should look like. Which should be beautiful and should be deceiving. Now, on Crowley's Clipot, where he has Belial and Addramalech, Belial is the deceiving one, and Addramalech is the one of beauty. Now, there's something about Belial, though, that I do want to point out. There's some stuff that a lot of people didn't necessarily know, because for those that are new to the channel, I was actually raised I went to Christian school and everything for like the first 4 or 5 years of my life, something like that. Oh no, it was only 2 or 3, yeah. But also raised Christian by my father and partially by my mother. So you're never taught that there is another Adam before Adam. That's because it's not really a part of Christianity. It's more part of like the Talmud and the Zohar and just Kabbalah. But anyway, they believe there was an Adam before Adam, just like there was an Eve before Eve, which was Lilith. So the Garden of Eden first had its roots in heaven. There was no earth, because remember, all these physical things that we experience are the work of devils, or the devil. So what we get is this Garden of Eden in heaven, and the first man, his name was Adam Belial. Now what happened was Lucifer falls. Now when he falls, he creates the abyss known as Dot, and it essentially sucks down the Garden of Eden with it into the physical world, which they allude to Lucifer having a hand in creating. So now it becomes very physical, but Belial ends up going with Lucifer, believed in what he was going for, I guess, and ends up falling. Now, Belial was never an angel. He was supposed to be one of God's perfect other creations, the would-be humans, if you will. But instead, he follows Lucifer, and he becomes... his name starts to mean worthless. Anything with Belial on the end of it means you are worthless. So if they mention sons of Belial, these are the sons of worthlessness. This is an aspect of God. Just like Adam, they call him Adam Kadmon, was an aspect of God as well. Now, one of the more interesting things that I'd like to back this theory with is that I believe that Zenon is Belial. Somehow. I don't know. I just like this vibe of, in kind of a Jack Clover way, is that in my past theories with the Dark Triad, more namely Dante and Vonica, seemingly to have been like reminiscent of Nox's parents, and don't have an exact age on them, and Zenon not being present right during Nox's upbringing. It seems like Zenon is the one odd man out. And remember, Dante in the beginning of the Spade Arc is asking Zenon, "Are you used to your devil powers?" Meaning he's late to this party. So somehow Zenon finds his way in this. And if he is Adam Belial, for whatever reason, going by Zenon. I think his bone magic makes sense because in just regular lore and religion, Adam is made from God's rib, and ribs are bone, which would make a really cool parallel to see that one of the first humans have, if the Dark Triad are part of the first batch of humans, they have this body magic because that is what represents the human vessel, is blood, flesh, and bone. But bone, it was the very first thing that God rips out of him, was the rib. Or rather, Adam gives a rib. Something like that. Gosh, now I'm getting my lores all mixed up. But you guys understand what I mean. There's something that is just so fishy about his relationship with his devil. And it would make so much sense if this was Adam Belial paired with Samael, the fallen angel. Because Samael is the snake that tempts Eve into eating the apple of knowledge, and thus corrupting mankind forever and poisoning them with knowledge. So I guess that's kind of the point of the video. I don't want to drag it out for too long because I know it's already a long video and it's already complicated. You got to give it a couple listens to make it stick if it didn't stick already. But you guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. This is where it's going to, like, it's gonna tell us which way Chabad is going. If Baal comes out of this, not gonna lie, I'm gonna be really, really disappointed. Baal shouldn't be in this at all. Now that I really look at the lore, I do have a past video on Baal. You can check it out. But honestly, I'd much rather prefer Crowley's Clipot in this situation, where Belial and Addramalech come out instead. Yeah. But anyway, you guys, thank you so much for clicking the button. As you guys probably already know, I'm on my road at 3.5K subs on this channel before the end of November. So if you could help me out by hitting the subscribe button if you like the content on this channel, that would just make my day / night. And hopefully I can keep giving you content that you'll like. My next Jack Clover video will probably be the beginning of next month. I think you guys are gonna like it, especially with the anime going. You guys might really like this. So I'm happy for some new stuff coming on the channel. But yeah, also might end up doing some manga reactions or reviews. Not for Black Clover, because I read the spoilers, so it wouldn't work out, unfortunately. So what I'm gonna do is more than likely start with Kaiju number 8, because you got to get more people reading that. And then probably do like Boruto Live or yeah, some other series. But we'll see. Just stick around. But that's enough. You guys, I will see you in the next video. You guys stay safe, stay out the way. This has been your boy Jack OATz to go. You either know or you don't.